Hey, and good Wednesday morning, everybody. Meteorologist Greg Majeski here, back with you here on the Weather Nerds YouTube channel with the weather report here on your August the 13th. Hope you guys are having a great morning out there, and we're going to continue to kind of watch what's going on across the country. We've got a weird weather day yesterday across the southeast. I was kind of slugged this as the summer of the flood. And it seems like every day we're just seeing these events come up with flooding taking place. I got some video I'm going to show you here in a second. And of course, we're going to get the latest on the tropics as well. We're going to talk about the overall weather pattern. It's going to be going through some kind of a roller coaster rides here over the next few days. We're going to have a lot of heat in the middle of the country. We're going to have a cool down probably in the east once that hurricane goes by. So a lot to talk about. Now, if you're coming into this broadcast after the live version of it at 8:30, if you could please do me the favor and hit that subscribe button up there, help our little counter go up there, help our little channel out here. And if you ever have a weather-related question, you can always post that down below. More than happy to answer your questions. And give us a thumbs up. You got to help the algorithm. Got to feed that beast to keep it happy. So I appreciate you guys supporting the channel. All right, we had a couple of hot spots yesterday. Still running pretty hot out in California. Let's see, I had to shot that video here in a second. Yeah, it was Stovepipe Wells, California. That was a hot spot yesterday at 123 degrees. And once again, Peter Sinks, Utah, which is your typical one this time of year at 25. Still running about 98 degrees. I'm still wondering if we're going to get that 100-degree swing. We're getting kind of late to be able to see that. But anyway, so let's take a look at what's got going on out there for this morning. We've got some scattered showers and thunderstorms, and we're getting some rains near the Chattanooga area where they don't need it. They had some flooding there, and you got some storms back over here into Texas. Pretty cloudy skies here across the Midwest. A little disturbance here moving through areas of Montana this morning, and pretty dry for most of the West. And as I was mentioning, the fact that the flooding that we had in extreme North Georgia and Chattanooga was pretty pronounced yesterday. Actually came on after the fact, or I'd done my live update here on my local channel, and boy, it just really became a problem. Look at all that flooding there. It was just really a problem there across Fort Oglethorpe, which is actually just a suburb just south of Chattanooga. And look at that apartment complex, just absolutely inundated. Upward, some very heavy rains, 6 inches plus into this one zone. There's also additional flooding down in southern Alabama. I saw some postings up there down near Fairhope, up to 16 inches. Again, tropical influence moisture that was kind of coming in out of the Gulf and causing some problems there across the area. Here's a little snapshot of that zone right there. Again, right near Fort Oglethorpe, showing that 6 inches of plus rain. And unfortunately for those guys, they got some more rain knocking on their front door in that zone, getting fairly close. So it was like going to pull back out here on the radar. You've seen some of that rain here just off to the north. So hopefully we won't get more rain into that area, but I do think that's a distinct possibility. And when I break it down here for you guys here in a second to show you the daily threats today, you're gonna notice that North Georgia, parts of Tennessee and North Carolina are once again under the gun for some of that flooding once again here for today. So let's take a look at the bigger picture here. Again, here's what's going on here as we're looking at this frontal boundary, which is going to work its way down. Eventually, this is what's going to pick up our tropical system, not till late. I mean, going into early next week. We got two little systems that are going to kind of drop down. The initial one's going to kind of wash out, and then we got another one behind it. We're still looking at tropical influence of moisture here across the deep south, so that's going to be a problem here for today. But the good news is this should begin to clear on out as we go in toward the end of the week, going into Thursday and Friday. The rain chances are going to reduce, but the temperatures are going to shoot up. And a lot of, for example, Georgia has been kind of not really seeing the extreme heat for a little time now, since probably the end of July. So we're going to see that begin to clear on out. And we're going to see the heat here start to back off the northeast as well here in the days ahead, thanks to that cold front that's going to catch that tropical storm and take it on out to sea. Now, looking at your watches and warnings here for this morning, we do have some flash flood watches here across Tennessee. We'll clear that out there again across Tennessee here for today. I got some heat advisories starting to pop up in here. We're going to see a lot of heat advisories here in the middle of the country. You see it out here in the west right there. So we're going to be seeing quite a bit of that take place here very soon. It's really going to get pretty hot, especially in the middle of the country. So again, I want to highlight this about the flooding for today. I want to do this first before I get into the tropical stuff. As you see that big bullseye right in here across North Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia, again, running about 15%. Again, some locally heavy rains, 3 to 4 inches plus, I think, not out of the realm of possibility, just by the sheer amount of moisture in the atmosphere And the models have been underestimating these as well as far as the total amount. So we're going to watch this zone here for today. But the good news is, as I show you the future days here ahead, got a couple of areas here out across Arizona, New Mexico with the monsoon and across the high plains. Watch as we go through ahead. Still looking at this lingering across the southeast, east coast, and I'm not seeing any yellows, but persistent marginal. And the reason why for that is, again, even though the rain chance is going to come down, any individual thunderstorms can still fire up some pretty good localized flash flooding in the zone. So whenever you see the green like that, it is localized, on not where you start going into the yellow and into the reds. That's when it becomes a little more widespread, a little more problematic in that arena. Let's go ahead and look at the thunderstorm breakdown here for today. Let's look at that first as we look at the categorical breakdown here, starting with day one. We got marginal here across areas of the Northeast. Going here from Massachusetts back down into Maryland. Again, watching that little system come through there. That'll cool the temperatures off a little bit there. Here in the middle of the country, South Dakota is under the gun here. Got the slight risk here down Interstate 90. So we're talking about Rapid Cities heading on over to Plate, Rosebud, like Allensworth, that area in here. So some gusty winds, 60, 70 mile per hour winds in that zone here for today. In fact, let's go and take a look at the categorical breakdown. Tornado threat there. Again, just a very, very slight 2% in that one little zone right there across North Dakota and Nebraska. Of course, the wind threat will be the bigger threat here for today, obviously upwards to 60, 70 mile per hour winds in this zone here for today. And that'll also be where the hail threat will be predominantly there. That's not too bad, though. It's only running about 5% in that bullseye here for today. Now, what about day two going into your Thursday? Let's check out day two. Day two. Again, we're going to kind of keep it up here on the high plains. That's typical, as that's where the main jet stream flow is flowing up around the Canadian border. So Grand Forks into Fargo. Again, this one once again under the gun here for severe weather for tomorrow. But general thunderstorm threat here along the East Coast and the Southeast. Okay, that's for your Thursday, and then going into your Friday. Again, looks like again South Dakota and into Minnesota. Getting close to Minneapolis, Sioux Falls in there, Pierre, Rapid City. That'll be going in for your Friday. All right, so that's your Friday outlook there, your 3 days there for severe weather. All right, let's talk about the latest out in the tropics. We got some things out there. Obviously, we're still watching and keeping a very close full eye on Erin out there. Erin's still fighting it pretty good. Still sitting in an environment that's got some dry air in it. Still has some dust in the area, so it's still kind of just holding its own with top sustained winds at 45 miles per hour. Continue to move west at 20. Should move into a better location by tomorrow. At that point, we're expecting to become a hurricane by late tomorrow, and then start become a Category 3 major hurricane. But by the time we get toward Monday, we're starting to make that turn, and all the indications are that this thing's going to stay well on off the sea. Now, although it's not going to be influencing the East Coast directly, it's going to cause a lot of high wind action, wave action out into the East Coast. So we're going to have to watch for that wave action. As we get a little bit closer, I'll make sure I show you the model data as far as wave action here along the East Coast. It's going to be pretty intense. So rip currents from Georgia all the way up into the mid-Atlantic can be expected as this hurricane kind of rocks the pond here a little bit in the days ahead. All right, now we do have another area we're kind of watching here as well. There's another area of disturbed weather here down in here, the Yucatan, showing a brief possible development there across areas of the Southwest Gulf, but I'm not expecting much there. Again, here is our Erin out here in the middle of the Atlantic right there, still kind of fighting the bad environment it's in. You see a lot of that browny haze in here. Again, that's that dust. It's but it's going to be moving into an area where the dust is not going to be a factor anymore by tomorrow. So we should see a better cluster of thunderstorms around that center of circulation going in for tomorrow. So this thing should start to get cranking here pretty soon. But other than that, there's nothing else out there for it right now. Still relatively, it's getting toward mid-August. The peak is September 10th. So not seeing anything really getting too crazy out there for right now. And as long as that persistent dust stays out there in the tropics, it's going to continue to be a bit of an inhibitor for any kind of tropical development out there. All right, so let's go to the model data here. We'll look at the loop here as you kind of see the European ensemble here showing that big turn coming our way. Again, you're going to see it right there, starts making that big turn. Pretty good cluster. Not bad. It's a pretty good cluster here of all the model data here. But again, all of them are showing the big turn as we're going to watch a cold front come off the eastern seaboard and pick this thing up. and drive it up toward the north. Notice that the Europeans not really locking on much of anything down here. Anything if it does develop here, it's going to go into Mexico or into South Texas. May enhance the rains down there in Texas here going into this upcoming weekend. But again, this is going to turn right on out to sea. And then we'll see what happens behind this. You notice we're starting to lock on to some additional wave action out here behind that system. So we'll see if we get anything else further to develop here behind Erin once this system pulls on out. Notice all the pink lines, though. That many pink lines pretty much tells you you're going to have a major hurricane here. We'll see how strong this one gets. You know, definitely going to get above 115. You know, probably get up to about 130, 135. We'll see. Forecasting strength forecasts with hurricanes can be a little tricky sometimes. That's one thing we've definitely seen here. I think we got a whole lot better as far as the plots, but as far as forecasting strength, that's still a little bit of a developing science, shall we say, on that. All right, let's go and take a look at our short-term models here. We're going to be looking at our model data here. We're going to first be looking at the NAM, the intermediate model here first. And we're going to get you going through here. We're going to be checking this out here. What we're going to be watching here over the next day or so is this developing troughiness that we're going to be seeing here coming across the high plains. So we're going to have a trough that's going to be digging down in here as we go into this upcoming weekend. And that developing trough is what's going to be picking up that hurricane as it comes off the eastern seaboard. So that's what's going to be sitting there. You see that one initial trough kind of fall apart, but there's another one that's going to come in behind it here. Let me stop this right here, right there. Let me take this forward again here. That's initial trough kind of moves on out, and then we got another one dropping off in here, and here it goes right there. So this is kind of your frontal system, kind of right back in here, right there. It's going to be coming on in here, and that is what's going to be setting up and picking up our system. So it looks like things will begin to dry out here a little bit across the southeast here as we go into Friday and Saturday. So things will become a little more isolated. What's interesting, we got a pretty good moisture flow coming in here in the northwest. There's some pretty impressive rainfall totals that are coming up there. Kind of an atmospheric river in August in the northwest. It's very unusual to see. They're going to get some wet weather up there as well here in the days ahead. Now let's go ahead and look at the rainfall totals here. Again, not looking too bad. Get a little bit of rain up there in the northwest, but going into early next week, boy, they can really go see some decent rainfall totals here. I'm going to show you the European here in a second. You see all this rain here in the southeast. Again, depending on where these storms kind of fire up into the individual storms, can do 1 to 2 inches pretty quickly, and then some localized ones up to 3 to 4 inches I think are possible, depending on where these storms flare up. Southern Alabama is still seeing some pretty good rainfall totals, 3.5 inches there. You see up toward Virginia, seeing 1.5, 2.5 inches there. So here along the coast, you see these little bright banding ones here. You really kind of bullseyeing where some of these heavy rains are going to be. So you're going to see these pockets of heavy rain, at least nothing too widespread, but they're going to be there. Got some rains going into the northeast as well. Obviously, with scattered thunderstorms up here as we go into late in the day on your Friday. So this is for the next 2 days. We're going to see going from Wednesday and into Friday, some pretty decent rainfall totals in here. All right, let's go check out the temperatures here. Again, got this looping on through, and boy, the big story is going to be that heat building in the middle of the country. You see the cool down in there in the northeast, and we're going to see the heat also building into the south as well. So when you see that more of that purple showing up on that map, you know it's going to get quite hot and quite intense here as we go into your Thursday afternoon here, for example. I mean, we're seeing some very hot temperatures here. Seeing temperatures up near 101 here, 99. Here's 102 up in the Dakotas. So we're getting some very, very hot temperatures here. Starting to see the heat build across the southeast. A brief cool down after the heat we had here earlier in the week. We're seeing temperatures here in the 70s here across the northeast. Not bad. Illinois looking at 84 here for tomorrow. And as we go into your Friday, let's take this all the way out here to the Friday 2 o'clock. Still looking at the heat here. Not bad in the northeast, holding on to the 70s, but building heat across the south. Seeing the 90s coming back in here. And again, depending on how close the hurricane gets to the coast will dictate how hot it's going to be along the southeastern portion of the United States. Now, if it stays far enough offshore, its influence will be fairly negligible. But if it gets a little bit closer to anticipated, the temperatures could be a little hotter. So that's going to be one of those day-to-day forecasts we just have to watch depending on the exact track of our hurricane out there. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look here at the big overall picture here. This is the European overnight ensemble. And again, we talked about this yesterday. We're going to talk about it again here today, is that once the hurricane clears, we're going to get a big trough there in the east. So I'm expecting a significant cool down toward the end of the month. It's just really a question of how much cool air is going to tap. That's going to be the big question. So here comes the storm getting picked up by this big trough up here. Here's our big Here's our big trough up here that's going to cause this storm to come up and hook on out to sea. Got a pretty good trough out here on the west coast as well. That's going to keep things kind of wet out there across the Pacific Northwest going into early next week. And this thing gets picked up, and as it does and swings on out, we're going to see a big trough come in on the backside of this. So as we go toward the 26th and 27th, I do expect to see a pretty decent cool down here across the east. It's just going to question of how big of a cool down is it going to be, how far south is it going to get. Got another little trough here out here in the west moving in as well. So again, all this is going to be, it's like a set of dominoes when you're watching something like this. So you're just kind of watching, you know, the hurricane go by and the trough come in on the backside. That seems pretty reasonable to me, and we'll continue to monitor that for any changes here as we wrap up the month of August. But in the meantime, with this trough here in the east, it's going to be very hot here in the west. The plain states may shift out here from Canada out here to the west is going to really heat up there in the response to that trough there in the east. All right, so let's look at your forecast here as we kind of watch this on through. We're going to watch this hurricane come on up here. Again, we're watching this trough that's going to pick this thing up here, and here comes that cold front right here. You kind of see this thing right through here coming on through. Here it comes, and it's going to pick this thing up and stir it out. At that point here, showing up on Tuesday, showing a 960 hurricane, so Cat 2, Cat 3, getting pretty close there as we go into Monday. And then it looks like it bottoms out at about 955. That's not too bad there. And again, curls it right back out and out to sea. And again, that's what we're looking at. So we're watching that active northern flow, which is kind of moving across the northern portion of the country, right through here. So that's what's going to catch up that hurricane and push it on out. And we don't have to worry about this one. And we'll have to wait and see if we get something else a little bit later. So there it goes, stirring on out to sea. And saying goodbye to that. Looks like it stays a little unsettled there across the southeast going toward the end of next week, though, as that front's probably going to stall. It's going to wait until the other front, which is going to be toward the end of the week, to come on down and clear that out. All right. So let's check out the rainfall totals here next 7 days here. Looks like we got some pretty good storms here across areas of Minnesota and back up here. Scattered storms across the southeast, the mid-Atlantic. Obviously, you see very clearly where our tropical system is here with the heavy rain pulling right through there. And check out these rains up here in the north, up into the northwest going into early next week. Again, 3.5 inches. 3.5 inches, pretty good rains. That's a little unusual to see that this time of year. You know, usually August is kind of a drier month there for the Northwest, so that's a little unusual to see that. A little bit of monsoon moisture coming up out of here, out into New Mexico, so that'll keep the temperatures from getting oppressively hot down in the Southwest. That'll continue into early next week as well. All right, so let's look at the temperatures here. Again, here looking at for this upcoming weekend, look at all the heat here in the middle of the country. We got 106, we got 103, we got 104. A lot of heat here. We're also warming it up into the southeast as well, 93 degrees there on your Friday. Let's look at your Saturday afternoon. Saturday afternoon, we still got plenty of heat there. Look at 107, 108. It's going to fry there in the middle of the country. Just unreal heat there coming in toward the middle of August here. And as we go on through into Sunday, let's go into Sunday afternoon here. Again, it starts to shift here to the middle of the country. The Midwest starts getting a little hot. It's seen some heat here into Kentucky and into West Virginia. The Southeast, still looking at 100-degree temperatures in Texas, all the way up into South Dakota. I mean, we're talking oppressive heat there. A little warmer here in the northeast here. Temperatures into the 80s, middle to upper 80s are showing up in there. Cooler out into the Pacific Northwest. Now, as we go and watch this frontal system come on in, as we go into next week, so there's the heat still holding there on Monday, really not changing all that much. It is warming up into the northeast. And then going into Tuesday afternoon, again, we start showing indications of that front. You see the cool down. Look at this here. Look at this. 51 degrees up there in the UP, up there in the upstart portion of Maine here. UP Michigan showing temperatures in the 50s as well. So we got a nice little cool down. There's our frontal system going into Tuesday. And going into Wednesday, boy, it really cools down. Look at this, 50s, 70s. You get 70s here, 70s across the Midwest. Look where all that heat got beat back. It's getting pushed back off toward the west. So we got that frontal system. That's the one that's going to catch our hurricane, and it really cools that down. That's the initial cool down. There'll be even a greater cool down, I think, coming in behind once that front clears and that secondary trough comes in response to the hurricane clearing out in the northern Atlantic. So as this goes on through, and I'm going to take this all the way out. Look at these lows here going in toward Thursday morning. I mean, going on the 21st. I mean, a lot of 50s out here. Look at all that green on that map. Just quite a bit. There's a nice cool down across the Midwest and into the Northeast going in there. And that's that initial one. I'm going to take this all the way out into where I anticipate that next cool down taking place here. This is on the American GFS model, by the way. So again, you kind of see that front moving on down here. And look at these afternoon temperatures. Wow, look at that. Really shoving out. Only the 90s in the southeast. Look how much of the country is cooling off. Look at this. Wow, just a real big cool off here coming in toward the end of the month. So looks like we're going to see a nice big change coming in response to that hurricane that's coming our way. Speaking of I want to make sure I mention this because somebody said they like to see it every day, and I said, okay, I can do that. Again, we've been talking about the year of the flood, which has also been the year of the smoke. And looks like the Northeast is cleared on out. Looks like they got a bit of a break. And it looks like I don't see anything more prevalent as far as more decent smokes coming. There's a little bit, but not a ton. There's a lot of smoke out here in the west we're seeing out here. But I see a little bit here across the Great Lakes, a little bit across the Northeast, but not quite as bad. Looks like it clears out here briefly here for a little bit. A little smoke works its way back in there, but does not appear to be overly bad. It's probably enough. It might be enough to, especially in some of the urban areas, to give you a little bit of, air quality warnings and stuff up there, but it doesn't look overly bad for right now. It's still out the west looks a little bit worse out there with some of the fires out there. But as far as what's coming in out of Canada, not looking too bad there. All right, let's look at your climate outlook here. Let's look at that. I want to talk about the changes that they did issue here. Okay, and we were talking about this yesterday, and I really thought it was going to happen. It looks like we're going to see that here as we look at this outlook. So again, looking at the 8 to 14 day here, look at that big cool down there in the Northeast. I mean, just again, and I think it might be even more pronounced than that coming in toward once we get an idea how much cool air is going to be there. I think it's good. This map's going to change. So this is what we're seeing for today, and then this is what we're going to see here for tomorrow. Going to see quite a bit of a cool down there as we go out from the 20th to the 26th. Again, going out to that last week, going 27th. I really think it's going to cool that down significantly. Looking at your look at your precipitation there, a little bit drier there in the Pacific the northeast portion of the United States. Also out in the western portion of the United States, cool. It gets dry just a little bit. And then as we look at the 8 to 14 day, they're kind of drier there in the middle of the country because of the cool down that's coming our way there. And then it looks like we'll see some wet weather across the southeast to kind of watch there. So it looks like we're going to see some subtle changes definitely coming our way. We're going to see that big time here in the days ahead. So get ready for that. That is coming here real soon. So anyway, that is our morning update here for today. Again, get ready for watching this hurricane come on by. It's going to swing on by. It's going to stay off the eastern seaboard. If you guys are planning on anything going to the beaches or anything along the east coast of the United States, again, watch out for the swells that'll be increasing. It could start to increase as soon as this upcoming weekend, and watch that, especially going into next week. And then we'll see what happens. Again, the middle of the country, we're going to see a big time spike in those temperatures. You're going to see heat indices, excessive heat warnings, very similar to what we saw a couple weeks back at the end of July. I think we're going to see that in the middle of the country here going into early next week. Some very big time heat blowing into the area. Okay, who we got out there? We got Mick out there this morning. Hey, Mick, good to see you there from Arkansas. Woody Woods out there in Noonan watching there. Good to see you guys this morning. Had Daisy on earlier today. I appreciate you guys checking out the report this morning. And I got to get some membership. My Pivotal, for some reason, did not renew properly. That's one of my subscriptions, and that's why the ads keep popping up, because my login is not working properly. So I got to get that fixed. I'll work on that here for tomorrow. All right, that is y'all's update for today. Appreciate you guys checking us out. You guys be good, stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow on the Thursday edition here of the Weather Report. Until then, you guys have a great day, and I do appreciate you guys checking us out. We'll talk to y'all.